Broads Media.
What is going on, everyone? Let's talk some baseball today. Real quickly, if you realize there's something different with the lighting, I'm working around some things here with my office and even with the audio. I was dialing in some things over the last few days with the audio as well, so just tweaking some things, that's all. Before we begin and dive into the conversation, if you're new to the channel, make sure you smash the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate all the support. And real quickly, if you're looking to buy tickets to go to any NBA, NHL, NFL games, utilize the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page. $20 off. $20. I'm basically giving you a free $20. You're eliminating all the fees right from the jump. It's a no-brainer. Make sure you get yourself to a game today. And with that being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. Let's talk some Philadelphia Phillies today, shall we? And unfortunately, it begins with the sour news that there's a lockout currently at this time. Now, my gut feeling as we sit here is this won't really impact the start of the season or losing out on games, but maybe as we continue and the progress happens, or maybe I should say the lack thereof with the progress, maybe my emotions do change and I start to get more nervous about it. But there's just so much time, and at the end of the day, these two parties know how important it is to get the product back out there on the field. Now, I'm disappointed on both sides, and I get it. Look, they want to limit tanking, and you can talk about service time, and you can talk about luxury tax money, this and that. I think both sides have validity to conversations, but where I have the issue is, and I felt the same exact way during the COVID season when they were negotiating, going back and forth, and both sides were being so stubborn, they don't fully care enough about the actual sport. Their motor and their motive is all about beating the other side. They feel that coming out victorious and at least beating the other side is more important than anything else involved, and that's disappointing as a sports fan. We love this damn sport, and right now, money's being thrown around like nothing. Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, those $300 million deals are now looking like steals. Why? Because players are getting $40+ million a year. Look at Max Scherzer. My guy lands a massive deal at age 37, getting him paid until he's damn 40, and he has the balls to stand up there with Scott Boras and talk about all this with the players union, this and that. Look at the money Carlos Correa is about to get. The list goes on and on and on. Mookie Betts' contract, Mike Trout's contract. These guys are getting paid an obnoxious amount. While I do believe that the players have a point to kind of tweak some things and target some details to make things a little bit better for them, what I need them to do, both sides, is have good faith and actually sit down with the proper goal in mind. And sometimes you have to give and take a little bit. It's like a relationship in life. When you're married to your significant other, she does this, I do this. Well, we have to compromise so we can get on the same page and live together here. And I don't understand the hostility getting to this point. I get it. You're never going to see eye to eye, and you're always going to believe that the other side is trying to maneuver and be a little bit of a snake and slither through. But at the end of the day, you have to work together through that, sort of like with the NBA. Clearly, when there's things that need to be ironed out, Adam Silver, everyone gets involved to do it. Now, it might not be perfect and it might not be beautiful, but there's actually something being targeted and there's a goal in mind, where right now I don't think there's really a goal in mind other than we have to make sure we get back at the owners for the last time and the last CBA and this and that. This has been known for years and years and years. You can talk to any baseball guy who's been covering this damn league forever, and they'll tell you the same thing. Oh, we had 2021 locked in on our radar because it was inevitable that we would be going down this path. Well, if it was inevitable that there would be a work stoppage, you would think you could be proactive in this to make sure that it doesn't happen. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So as we sit here today, I'm not too worried about the games being missed and where it might lead to. But maybe that changes as this continues to play out. Let's dive into the Philadelphia Phillies specifically, because there has been an aggressive reaction to Dave Dombrowski and the lack of moves, if you will. Now, they ended up making a couple moves. They got Knebel, to help out with the bullpen, and they went after Camargo, who's basically going to be your Ronald Torreyes, your utility guy, your guy who can rally in there for a little bit of time and give you a little spark, hopefully here and there, sort of that mindset. Right? So there's your utility guy in Camargo. And then Knebel can help you out with that back end of the bullpen. He signed a one-year deal for $10 million. I love the signing. It's definitely an area that you're going to have to make a big improvement on. But I don't know. I'm very baffled because Dave Dombrowski has a systemic issue to really break down. And quite frankly, I think he's been doing an amazing job at it. It's funny. If you go back to my Dave Dombrowski instant reaction podcast when he first got signed, I was a little bit confused and I didn't love it. And I wanted to go younger. I wanted to go after Neander. I wanted to look at Tampa Bay, right? But his track record did speak for itself. He won in Boston. He won earlier in his career, so he's got 2 championship rings. With Detroit, sustained success and built it in a different way than he built the Boston Red Sox. He's very versatile in his approach, and it doesn't have to be, well, this is his way. No, he does it basically how he needs to based off of where the organization is, and this team was a damn mess. So let me get this straight. The same people that want him to go out there and sign every single damn player ever in the history of Major League Baseball who was available before the stoppage and before everything was frozen are the same people that watched this franchise over the last 10 years and said, there needs to be major change. I hate to break it to you, but it takes a little time for that to happen. I think he's tweaking all the internal moves where we can somewhat hopefully start to establish a minor league system and developing and growing players through the ranks. A-ball, double-A ball, don't forget rookie ball. The list goes on and on. All of that. And then on top of that, you need center field, left field. You need an entirely new bullpen. It's going to take some time. And here's what I don't love. Well, this is on John Middleton because he's not going over the luxury tax. That's not the problem here. You know who spent a lot of money last year? The New York Mets. You know who spent a lot of money last year? The New York Yankees. The answer isn't, well, because the last regime left you in such a dumpster fire spot. The only way around things is to just blow through cash. And if John Middleton's unwilling to do that, then screw him. It's all John Middleton's fault. I cannot disagree with that anymore. $189 million is enough money to spend to be competitive. Now, I'm not saying that it's ridiculous if he does go over the luxury tax. It would be nice if he's willing to, but I wouldn't for just an average team. If it's more about, hey, let's make that next step and let's add to take that big next step to go win a championship and I got to spend some cash to do it, I'll do it. That's a big different spot than where you are now. $189 million. It's top 5 in all of baseball. They're spending more than the majority of the entire league. John Middleton is willing to spend enough money, 1,000%. You just have to spend it the right way, and that's when I go back to I trust Dave Dombrowski to know how to fully operate within a luxury tax. But if he's willing to do it, he's willing to do it, and all right. But there's just so much to fix here. It's going to take a bit of time, but you can still stay competitive and still fight, scratch, and crawl your way as you do that and be a team that is at least enjoyable in a journey type of team. So, look, the Washington Nationals was just an average team, and then they got hot. The Atlanta Braves, because of injuries, they were somewhat of just an average team, and then at the trade deadline, they went out and made major splashes and ended up being the difference maker and them going to win a championship. So my point is, you don't need to be the Dodgers on paper before the season begins to have a little bit of noise and to have an exciting season. Even if, and I'm not telling you the Phillies are winning a championship. Let me be very clear. But my point is, if you head into a season with just, because the Braves were supposed to be a lethal team, then they ended up not, and they lose Acuna, and Freddie Freeman was hitting one of the worst he's ever hit to start a season. Then he started to explode, but once they made those trades, that's what really made the Braves pop and took them to that next step on that explosive little run that they had. It might not necessarily need to be as sexy as the Braves and as sexy as, look at the San Francisco Giants. Heading into last year, did anyone really anticipate them to have that type of season? No. So, I think with Dave Dombrowski, relax a little bit. Relax. It doesn't have to be Carlos Correa and all this. what they were targeting is still very available. So when Max Scherzer was off the board, like, why not Max Scherzer? Look, do you want to follow the New York Mets? Do you know why the New York Mets are spending that type of money? Because they have Steve Cohen right now, who is somewhat knee-jerk reaction to what happened with Mats and that whole Twitter rant that he went on that pissed him off so much. It's almost like he's so aggravated, he went on this rant and just started throwing cash everywhere. You don't want to be doing exactly what the Mets are doing. When you spend a massive amount in just aggressive nonstop, normally it's because you have to by default because you're in such a shitty spot, and then it ends up backfiring. So let's see what happens with them. With the Texas Rangers and the moves that they made. They went out and made some aggressive moves. And look, I'm not telling you that it's like the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, that's not the only way to go about things. Sustained success is being able to rely on internal moves on top of those big splashes. And that's what Dave Dombrowski is trying to mold around with this unit. The Bryson Stotts, getting Alec Boehm back. I don't have the most faith in the world because you have to basically redo your entire defense and your entire offense. It's hard to reshape one of those skill sets in one offseason, and now you have to apply two. It's not going to be easy, but I love the fact that they're so focused on it. Like, it's no joke. They were starting right after. During that press conference at the end of the year, Dave Dombrowski said they were already working on those details with Alec Boehm, where it's no joke. Hey, let's go, because we need you big time. And they committed to him. He's our third baseman. We look at him as our future third baseman. And I like that. It applies pressure, don't get me wrong, but it's better than the I don't know, maybe he is, maybe he doesn't. No, he's our guy. So, Boehm, let's go. Let's get at it. Let's make it happen. Because you're the answer right there. And with Bryson Stott, same thing. You know, I heard a story about Dave Dombrowski talking to Bryson Stott, and it was like, don't come into spring training just happy to be there. Go win the job. Because there's no promises to Didi Gregorius. So I bring that up to you because you need to have that internal too. You can't just say, go spend $300 million on every single big fish that's out there, and let's go win a championship. If you do that, and that's another thing that Dave Dombrowski mentioned. Sure, you can go spend the big money on a Story, on a Correa, on a Chris Bryant, but we have a lot of holes, and he's not wrong. So would you rather fix one and then kind of have to throw a glue stick on others, some tape, if you will, Scotch tape, or do you kind of take an approach where you fill these holes with solid players around? So instead of one big splash and then some things, it's just really solid players all around to fill out what you need. And I don't necessarily disagree with that one, starting with Kyle Schwarber. And there's a bit of a rumor right now flying around that, like, it's so damn close. It was so damn close before everything put on pause to the point where, because of Kevin Long and what happened with the Washington Nationals and getting back on track with that beautiful swing of Kyle Schwarber providing a lot of spark and getting back on track for him personally, that there's a big-time relationship there and possibly looking at something similar to 4 years, $75, $80 million, and then bang, you find yourself someone who can really help out in that outfield, which they need a lot of help in. That would be massive. And that's a beautiful signing if that is the case. I would imagine that Dave Dombrowski has that ready to be locked and loaded. And the point that I started this all off with, which is people were disgusted and really disappointed with him because people were coming off the board and he wasn't doing much, really Starling Marte. And Chris Taylor ended up getting signed by the Dodgers. And I think that, look, he's happy to be there. You think about winning championships and being competitive. It's hard to pry away somebody like that. But money does speak. Regardless, Starling Marte was on so many teams' radars, and the Phillies didn't get him. You missed out on your center fielder. You missed out on your leadoff guy. What the hell is Dave Dombrowski doing? See, my problem here is these are the same people who are upset right now that were upset with Andrew McCutchen getting paid that contract at his age. Maybe Starling Marte is better than Andrew McCutchen is in terms of aging out with this contract. Maybe not, though. And it's a guy who's getting older in his career, and I think he could provide more for you in the early stages of it, but I think there's a reason why teams weren't willing to give as many years as the New York Mets were, because they play that long-term game with it. Is it going to be worth it towards the end? And we just got through an Andrew McCutchen contract that was a bit murky, where maybe Dave Dombrowski was like, look, I'll go 2 or 3, but I'm not going to bring that extra mile. And I can't fault Dave Dombrowski for thinking that way. Right now, the Mets are just chucking money around this and that. Hey, doesn't matter, whatever. Well, since when do you want to follow the Mets and their track record right now? We'll see if it ends up paying off for them over 162. I don't care if they start out hot. I don't care if they have a hot start to the season. It's about the longevity game with these older guys, and we'll see what it means in the long run, especially with the Atlanta Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr., things like that. Them being as hot as they were. But Freddie Freeman, huh? How about that? They're still kind of hanging around. Thought that was a no-brainer, an automatic, would have signed instantly kind of thing. Pretty interesting that he's playing the waiting game. We'll see what that means. If I'm a team right now, I'm instantly, Freddie, what do you want? Now, that's the type of player, you land a big fish like that, now we're doggy, you know what I'm saying? That's a player. It's a little different than Chris Bryant's. It's a little different. Now, I like Chris Bryant, but I also have mentioned this before. I think it's a bit of an overpay for a 260, 270 style hitter because of the name. Now, I wouldn't be disappointed as long as the contract isn't anything overwhelming. We know Scott Boras is his agent. We know that him and Bryce Harper are boys. So there's the connection already. If that's the case, yeah, it'd be awesome. But I did hear Jim Salisbury speak about it, and it didn't seem like that was where the hot item was. Kyle Schwarber is the name that is consistently thrown around, which means they would still need help in that center field department. There was also some rumors, and this was a little bit more on the mind, not as much as I heard about the Kyle Schwarber news, but Kiermaier from Tampa Bay. Now, he's not someone who's explosive at the offensive side of the dish, but when you're that putrid defensively as you were last year, to solidify someone that can help out that role and be a really, really strong defender, sign me up for that. And they're going to need to get two outfielders because there's no way in hell we're running it with Mickey Modiak and Adam Hayes. And think about this. A few years ago, they spent the first overall pick. They could have selected anyone in the damn country, and they selected Mickey Modiak, and they still know that it's such a problem, and it's such an issue that they have to look elsewhere and look into free agency or try and make a move. There's not really much, I guess I should say, in that free agency market for center field specifically. So, yeah, I mean, that trade market is where you might have to kind of look at. Not that there's a lot of things to be able to move, but how about this? Like the whole Medina thing, Medina getting kicked to the curb, that's another prospect. At one point, Medina was the guy that you have to look out for as a Phillies fan to take that bump on a big-time Sunday afternoon style game at Citizens Bank Park, and he was a fool just like everybody else. All these names that we've been hearing over the last however many years have just been a big nothing, a big absolute nothing, and it sucks, but that's reality. But I trust Dave Dombrowski. See, there's no reason to overact. There's still so much time. There's still so many players left out there, and by the way, they have to go and get a complete new bullpen. If they landed some players and then they didn't fix the bullpen at all, especially after losing Hector Neris, then you'd be the same people bitching, well, he didn't fix the bullpen. Yeah, he didn't fix the bullpen because he went after the big, humongous name that you wanted and you were bitching about that they weren't targeting. So let him go to work. He's a very sharp baseball mind that has been around the game for a long period of time, that is trying to fix this organization, I would say from top to bottom, but really from bottom to top, going all the way back to their minor league systems. And that's not an easy process. So he's fixing systemic issues while also targeting a highly competitive team at the same time. And that's unfortunate based off of who left here in Matt Klentak and Andy McPhail. So it's on him to fix it up, and he's kind of going about it the right way when you think about changing infield coaches and looking through that and looking through the whole development process and who's in charge of that and looking at Tampa Bay and plucking away some young guys from there. Grabbing some respected veteran baseball minds to join the roster, join the team. There's a lot involved here. So just breathe. That's my point. Breathe. Everyone's like, oh, they did nothing. All these things. You want to follow the Mets? There's a reason why some of the really strong organizations have been kind of waiting around a little bit. There's a lot on the table right now at the CBA. And the players, Schwarber, and there's a lot of others out there, and some bullpen pieces that you're really going to have to approach, they're still out there. What you need is still out there. And even if you do look at the shortstop department in Trevor Story, still out there. So just relax. Take a deep breath. So speaking of Hector Neris, I love that I brought that up. Here's a tweet from Corey Seidman, and it's so damn true. Take away the name Hector Neris, right? If the Phillies signed a reliever tomorrow, who had a 3.46 ERA. 205 is the opponent's batting average. 11.8 Ks per 9 over the prior 3 seasons. Reaction would be pretty enthusiastic. That's Hector Neris, whose worst moments here were always amplified. Understandably so, without the lack of winning. Not only that, I think he was way better in that secondary role, more so than the closer role, but I thought that it was amazing what his numbers were, and he got so much hate for, I don't know, irrational, emotional reasons, I guess I should say. So Corey Seidman continues. Because of the majority of his time here, he had to be the best reliever on the team. Think he could be valuable as a contender's third best late inning option. No doubt about it. There's a huge difference when you're now a third option compared to the number. Like, you're putting him in. You are a Brad Lidge role. Well, come on. He's not going to be that. That's unfair. But because of the problems that this organization has run into for so many damn years, he was forced to be this shut-down elite guy. Imagine if you have 2 sharp bullpen pieces behind Hector Neris, and then Hector Neris is there. I mean, that's huge. I was texting Moshe, right? Jeff Mosher, he's anti-Hector Neris. And I said, you just wait till we're in the World Series, Astros versus Phillies next year, and Hector Neris comes in and shuts down Bryce Harper, Chris Bryant, Rhys Hoskins in 9 straight pitches, all swings and misses, with the splitter mixed in with the fastball and maybe even a little bit of a slider as well. And just to be clear here, with Knebel, by the way, let's not rule out the fact of going after Craig Kimbrell as well. It just seems like that's a marriage that's inevitable based off of the relationship between the two and the journey that those two have been on together, Dave Dombrowski and Craig Kimbrell, that is. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and is your 9th inning guy, and then, you know, Knebel could be your 8th inning guy. Now you're starting to solidify that back end a bit. I would not be surprised. So let Dave Dombrowski kind of do his work. Now, we have some Anytime Hotline calls, and we also have some comments as well with this topic. So before we get to that, let me tell you about my friends over at DeSimone Jewelers. They are my jewelers, okay? I got my fiance's engagement ring from them, and I keep going back. Birthdays, holidays, Valentine's Day, Christmas, you name it. They're a family-owned business located in Haddonfield, New Jersey, previously in Jewelers Row. Will, Lou, Nick, Mike, they treat you like family, and they work with you to get the best design at the most reasonable price you will find in the market. It's not about you're just a customer and they're trying to make a quick buck. No, they really do care. They're very passionate, and they educate you about the difference in the rings and the difference in the necklaces and the clarity in the diamond. It's a really awesome experience. They can provide custom jewelry designing, jewelry repairs, appraisals, watch repairs, diamond setting, and so much more. Their information is in the description down below, DeSimoneJewelers.com. Make sure you tell them that Brode sent you. They will absolutely 1,000% hook you up. All right, let's rock on over to the Anytime Hotline. Here we go.
You know, Broads, I think you and I are on the same page with this one. I'm surprised at the bashing that Dombrowski seems to be getting by the Phillies fans as far as sitting on his hands and not doing anything compared to the other teams in the division. Look, of the guys that have signed that I know of, the only one that was linked to the Phillies was Starling Marte. Everybody else that they're supposedly in on is still out there. You know, the Knebel contract to me is perfect. It's a 1-year deal for an off-injured guy who seems to put together a good year followed by a bad year. If it doesn't work out, you cut him loose. He said he wanted to work on the bench. He signs Camargo. Okay, decent bat, had a few big hits against the Phillies. Bottom line is this. Whenever Dave Dombrowski retires, he's going in the Hall of Fame. I trust him to orchestrate the rebuild of this team a hell of a lot more than I would a Matt Klentak. I think Phillies fans need to pull back on the reins and be a little more patient.
I couldn't agree more with you. I'm absolutely in the same exact spot. It's just to make a move is basically what people were screaming before they did go after relief pitching and all. I was like, just do something. Everyone's doing it. Just do something. Well, let him operate. This guy's been around for a long period of time and has a lot of success. He's not stupid. He's not dumb. He laid out the blueprint on what he was going to approach this offseason, and he said it right. He stared at everybody right in the face, right in the eyes, and answered all the media questions and said, this is how we feel about Bohm. This is how we feel about about Stott. This is how we feel about spending big money on one player compared to looking around. This is what we know we need to do. We got to find someone late in games who can shut down games. These are a lot of areas. The DH is also a conversation, right? There's a lot of things that he looked right at everyone and said, this is what we need to do. He's been around long enough to know how to kind of execute that said game plan. So, wait. If by the end of this he does nothing, then fine. Have at it. Get the pitchforks going. Light them on fire and start running down Broad Street screaming, fire Dave Dombrowski. But as for right now, just take a step back and just wait and analyze. You knew that there was going to be a lot of drama and a lot of toxic environment stuff happening based off of the CBA, which don't act like that doesn't play a role in the decision-making and pushing all the buttons and going all in and all when you think about signing some of these players. You know, the CBA is a big deal for these owners and a big deal for these GMs and a big deal for these players. And it matters to the impact of the franchises and the organization and how things are going to be kind of portrayed moving forward and on and just executed moving forward. So relax. There are plenty of players and plenty of solid talent out there. If they don't get it, then we'll reassess. And I think then it's fair to criticize and critique the final product. But as for right now, there's too much left. There's too much time and too many players available for you to start going down the road of this is a full-on disaster. You're not going to get every big name possible. And they weren't even linked to a lot of the guys, as you just alluded to, as some of the people were screaming about when they got off the board, if you will. So, all right, what's next? Here we go.
Hey, Broads. I had a quick question. I saw you were doing a Phillies podcast this afternoon. My question is, what do you make about what's going to happen with Matt Vierling? I know, the Phillies are looking for an outfielder elsewhere, but I think that Vierling has some promise, and I think he should be in the picture to some degree. I don't know if he's going to be an everyday guy, but somewhere in the picture there. All right, love the show. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the call, man. I'll be honest with you. The last thing I thought I was going to talk about today was Matt Vierling. So there's no denying that last year in 71 at-bats, he had a .324 batting average, an .842 OPS. He provided some spark. He had 2 bombs, 6 RBIs, a couple stolen bases in there. But yeah, I mean, he clearly overseeded my expectations. But I guess my point is, if we end up heading into next season and we're talking about Matt Vierling, yeah, I'm probably disappointed. Unless he just comes out of nowhere and is a special player. But you know me, that's not how I operate. That's not how I think things are going to go down. But ultimately, like with Matt Vierling, did he earn an opportunity to give himself a little bit of an opportunity when something does? Like, yeah, I think so. It's sort of like it's not to the same level. Let me be clear, not to the same level. But my point is, Ranger Suarez did so good that, I mean, he put himself in a position where his number deserves to get called in that starting rotation. Now, with Matt Vierling, not to that level, but I think if there were some circumstances that opened up, Matt Vierling deserved an opportunity to see if that .324 batting average, if there's more, something about that, if there's more about that than maybe what we assumed last season. But, you know, I don't want to be heading into next season talking about Matt Vierling. You know, like if that's the case, then yes, I will be disappointed. I don't want to be talking about Matt Vierling. That shouldn't be a conversation point. I'm not saying, like, I'm upset that you brought that up, but I'm telling you, if we think about this completed roster, right, and it's the way it's completed the way we want it to be completed, and it can't happen where everything is perfect with the snap of your fingers. This is a couple-year process. I think Dombrowski has this year, this offseason, and next offseason to really push the buttons properly the way that I think that he can within a 2-year span to put something, like, really respectful on the field, full package-wise. But I digress. Heading into this year, if the moves are made and we're talking Matt Vierling, then yeah, I think something went wrong, with all due respect. Now, here's some other comments. This is from Timmy S. Dave Dombrowski handled things ridiculously, but I guess there isn't much he can do if he doesn't have the owner willing to spend the big bucks. False. You're wrong, Timmy. You're just flat out wrong. He's very willing to spend the big bucks. To be honest with you, he's top 5. Top 5 last year, 5th in all of baseball, $189 million. The Mets were above him. Where did that get him? The Yankees were above him. Just because you spend money, the Yankees got to reshape a lot of things. They're very unhappy with where they're at. They're just spending money. There's more to it than just spending money. You got to do it the right way, methodically. It's not just about spending money. So I disagree completely with you, Timmy. And then Riot continues here and said they picked up who? LOL. Organization is a joke. We could have easily had Scherzer. He's washed, but he's better than our third. See, now look. One, he's not washed. If you look at his numbers last year, it was magnificent still. Very strong season. Now, he did have a bit of a dead arm in the postseason, and yes, he is getting up there in age. But the fact that Riot says he's washed, but he's better than our third. Now, that's not true. He's not washed. But my point is, a fan saying, just sign him anyway, give him over $40 million a year because he's washed anyway, but just do it to go make a signing. Doesn't that tell you exactly what I'm trying to say, which is this emotional, it's just too much. It's an irrational, knee-jerk, emotional type of statement. Well, he stinks, he's washed, but we need someone better than our third. So $40 million, just do it. That's how you get yourself caught with your pants down, and then you're like Matt Klentak. Do you want to be Matt Klentak? Now, once again, Max Scherzer's not that level. Not that level. But if we apply that to someone who is, then yes, I would agree. If they signed Max Scherzer, I wouldn't be disappointed because that guy's a dog, and he brings a different mentality to your clubhouse. John Hunter says, think he handled it the best way he could. Speaking of Dave Dombrowski, under the circumstances, that is, I believe in Dombrowski. He's a guy who is strategic with how he operates. Did it in Florida, Detroit, and Boston, and has 2 rings out of it. I can't agree more with you, John. That's exactly the way that I kind of see it. And then lastly here from Aiden, I'm kind of annoyed he isn't even checking in on guys like Correa or Chris Taylor. Well, Chris Taylor ended up signing. If you want to win, he has to go over the luxury tax. Oh, man. The thing about the luxury tax is, if they do it, they do it. Okay, they're in a position where going over the luxury tax, is that a conversation? Maybe. It's not like John Middleton. There's 4 teams that spend more than him. 4. To act as if that's why they're at where they're at is mind-blowing to me. I'll just leave it like that. And don't forget, by the way, Castellanos and that name, oh, it's thrown out there, and there were reports that the Phillies checked in, and there were some conversations happening. So there you go. There's another name that hasn't been taken off the board yet. So relax. With that being said, we're going to end things here. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Broads, and I will see you next time.